Thanks to all for joining today to this empowering your data journey inside Purview life cycles and record management. I hope to go and drive to you through these different tools from the past happening that several people have some misunderstanding about what is data lifecycle and what is record management. The idea of this webinar is help to you to understand, share some tips, and let's go. Remember that the session will be recorded and shared on YouTube. You can complete the survey. I added the survey on the chat. The agenda, I will go through a little introduction, a general overview, what is what. As I explained at the beginning, happens a lot that the people is a misunderstanding both concept and what we can do with each one. And during the live demo, I will explain best practices and use cases to finish with some Q&A. Sorry, let me. Okay, as I mentioned, my idea is try to clarify the concepts, help to you to understand. I will try to answer all the questions on the chat. And let's try to have an open discussion for each topic today. Maybe all of you are familiar with this draw. Microsoft is sharing all the time about information protection and governance, know your data, protect your data, prevent data loss, and govern your data. On the past, I was doing some webinars about Purview Data Map, MIP Scanner, data loss prevention, endpoint DLP, sensitivity labels, data classifiers, and other topics. You are invited to go to my channel and review those all sessions. But now we will focus on the last part. In the last part is where we found the retain and delete, the capabilities that we will use to accomplish some regulations, some laws, and some data governance baselines that we have in each of our works. We have different regulations for banking, for financial institution, telcos, and others, and we need to understand very well. And for that reason, I will start with some sample. In our Pinnacle Financial Group, this is only a sample, the IT group was adding some retention policies on SharePoint and OneDrive to accomplish, in this case, this past weeks I am in Spain delivering some services, and for that same reason I'm sharing some samples related to European laws and regulations. But for the people that here in this meeting is from EMEA, maybe you will very clear related to these regulations. We need to accomplish, we need to delete some data, but no matter, there is some cases when we need to retain some data for more time or less time, or we need to force some deletion. Nevertheless, remember that I will share this presentation later. You will be able to review the exercise, but we will discuss about all of that. The big deal is the fines. Uh, if you are not accomplished or you have some troubles to accomplish some regulations, there is some fines that can be applied, or the business reputation and several other things that can be affected when we are not doing the specific, or we are not accomplish or achieve uh, regulations or some laws. Let me continue. As I mentioned, today happens, or several times, that I'm working with customers. The customers are not totally clear about what is doing data lifecycle management and what is doing record management. I have a draw in a couple of slides to show in a better way. But in general, with data lifecycle management, we can set as an administrator a set of policies and rules to retain data or delete data after certain time. With record management, we can set some flows to review that data and decide if that data needs to be retained for more time, or we can approve the deletion of that information. Additionally, and maybe we will need to do some webinar about that, Purview have several connectors, and some of those connectors are related to HR. If someone resign or someone is marked to leave the organization, we are able to trigger through events, that is the concept, trigger the possibility to retain data or force deletion. It's very interesting what we can do with record management, but to start using record management, the first thing is understand very well data lifecycle management. Now, and this is very important, the principle of retention. You can easily find this draw if you use any search engine and you add Microsoft Purview principle of retention. You are able to find this draw, and you can see that retention wins over deletion. But if we have some conflict, we will see that several policies, several rules can apply over an account. The longest retention periods wins. If the conflict remains, explicit wins over implicit. That means if I am applying some specific policies over some specific SharePoint site or OneDrive account, that is explicit more than say, okay, all sites, all accounts. And if the conflicts remain, shortest deletion period wins. You can take time to review this one. As I mentioned, it's very simple and easy to find this draw. Use any search engine to find Microsoft Purview principle of retention, and you will find the page. To try to simplify what is happening with data lifecycle management, on data lifecycle management, we have in general two approaches. The first approach is the retention policies. An admin user can set retention policies over services. I can apply a retention policy over some specific services or some specific sites. Nevertheless, we can set retention labels. And through the retentions label, we are able, as same as the sensitivity labels, publish those labels to the end users, and end users can apply over items. Items mean emails, uh, Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, and several other files that can be marked as retained or deleted. This is very important and a very important topic to have in mind. Labels labels can be used to retain or delete. If you are aware, I was saying at the beginning, GDPR forces to delete personal data after certain amount of time. In that case, we can use the policies to identify that information and delete. Or if the users know that information is sensitive, they can mark that information for deletion. That is through the retention labels. I hope that this diagram can help a little to understand that difference. Okay, let's continue. Now, what is records management? On record management, we have the policies, the data that is retained or marked for deletion, plus the items that are marked with retention labels for the same achievement, retain or delete. But we can set some rules to send to trash after the time finished if we cannot find any kind of sensitive information or any other definition that we can set, or if we found some specific information in that document, in that site, we can send to a supervisor. We will see that exists a specific Purview role group called supervisor that can define if that information can be deleted, marked for deletion, or needs to be relabeled to store for more time. I believe I tried to show in the most easy way how we can make the difference between data lifecycle management and record management. And now let's go to the demo. You know that I'm not happy with too many slides, and for that reason, I will try to go very quick in our environment. Okay, let's go. Let me cancel here. Okay. When we go to the Purview portal, let me go to the Purview portal, purview.microsoft.com. Okay, someone is asking if exists some different options in the classic Outlook versus new Outlook on end user's perspective. At least I am not aware that exists a difference between retention labels on that. Uh, Past week, I was reviewing some issues with sensitivity labels and permissions, but not with retention labels. But that is something that we can test easily because the new Outlook is the same that use the OWA, the Outlook Web Access. And at least on my experience, Outlook Web Access have the same behavior, the same end user experience when you apply retention labels. But let's go and let's see what we can find. Okay, we have solutions. Under solutions, we are able to find data lifecycle management, and records management. For me, both technologies working together, but nevertheless, first is data lifecycle management. We need to work with data lifecycle management to do something on record management, because record management use this retention labels and use other definitions that we can find in that tool. Let's start first with settings. In settings, we can find a couple of things. If we go to purview.microsoft.com and we access to settings in the left side or here at the top right, in all the cases, we can go to this menu, and here we can see that we have some additional settings for data lifecycle management and record management. I will start with data lifecycle management. We will go through all the capabilities in data lifecycle management, and then we will go back to record management. The first one, and the only one, because this legacy coming from the old experience, and this will be deprecated, is enable the capabilities to use adaptive protection that is used by insider risk management. And that will be another webinar that I hope to do soon about insider risk management, to understand how insider risk management, when someone reach certain risk score, we can set some rules to retain the data, protect the information, and avoid that certain information can be deleted. Now, let's go to data lifecycle management. As I mentioned, we'll start with this one first, and then we will go to the rest. Something that is very interesting from here, something that is very interesting from here is something that I believe DLP and sensitivity labels needs. What is this one? Is a kind of what if that permit me to say, okay, I want to see my user, and this is very important to know, and I can find all the policies that apply over that user. Why this is important? We will view that on record management, but we can set some configurations to avoid delete data. Normally, on email, when you delete the data is hide from the end user's view, but is still retained for e-discovery and audit purpose. On the case of SharePoint and OneDrive, when you try to delete the data and the data is retained, you're not able to delete the data. But we will see that there is a special configuration that permits to hide from the end user view and then retain that information to run audit activities through eDiscover. Here we can see all the policies that are falling over my account. Well, starting with data lifecycle management, we can see a summary about what is happening with the information. We can get some additional resource to learn. There is a ninja training as well. I am adding on the links on this presentation. You will be able to find that link if you want to do the sorry, the ninja training. Then we have the retention labels. And here start our travel, our journey to accomplish the data governance and apply the right policies and the right rules to retain or delete the data. When we set to create a label, and I will show you something that is not totally clear and maybe more than once can be confused on that. We can create retention labels here on data lifecycle management, and we can create retention labels under record management. The big deal, and I will show you that, and I will explain the command that you need to use, is through data lifecycle management, we cannot create retentions for records. When you work with data management and maybe an ISO and ISO 9001 or something like that, you need to mark some document as a record. By default, Microsoft Purview have that capability but disable. We need to use PowerShell to enable that capability. And we will see that, and that specific configuration mark a file as a record is not available through here. That will be available through record management, working on the same labels. Okay, let's call this one webinar 01. Again, always please try to put a plain English description, something clear to end users, and not information too technical or too legal. Very simple, this information will be retained for 30 days and after that will be deleted, or this will be retained for 7 years and after 7 years the information can be deleted. Something very clear for end users. Now, here we can see that we can retain the items forever or a specific period, enforce actions after a specific period, or just label an item. Let's see the options that we have on the first one. On the first one, we can see that we have retain items for 5, 7, 10 years forever, or under custom, we can set as an example only 6 months. Something that you need to have clarity on this. The recommendation normally is when the items were created or when the items were labeled. The big deal with when items were last modified. Today, if you're clear with Microsoft 365 collaboration, every time that you open a file on SharePoint or inclusive with the Office applications locally in your desktop, the autosave is turned on. And every time, that is easy to test in your environment, every time that you open a file, the autosave is on, and you can see that the last modify change for your current date. If you use this one, at least the data will be always marked to start the retention period again. Maybe the only case that can happen is a file that is a cold data that someone forget or used it years ago, and maybe we can delete that. But at the moment to create the retention labels, we need to have clarity in this one that can be affected by the autosave. The other options that we have here related to event types, as I mentioned at the beginning, Microsoft Purview have several connectors, and some of those connectors are related to connect HR system. If someone leaves the organization or maybe the contract change, or the contract is set to finish in 6 months or less, we can set different events. In this case, if I select, nothing happened because I was not able to create a connector right now on my environment, but I will show you that at least to give to you an idea where that is located. Okay, we need to have this one on mind. And then for the first one, remember that we will go through these different options for the retention labels. We are on the first one, retain items forever or for a specific period. After 6 months, when the items were created, we can set to delete items automatically. This is the one that is related to record management. That is a start a disposition review. Exists a specific role under Purview roles groups that is given to review those kind of cases. I will show you that just today I was receiving from Microsoft 365 record management that I have some items labeled for disposition. I can change the label to another one. Okay, after I retain after 6 months, then delete or retain for another 90 days, or delete after 30 days, but send to a disposition step. There is different options that we can set here. Start the disposition. We need to start creating the different stages and who is the people in charge to take some actions. We can create a Power Automate. Maybe in this case can be used to move the data from a SharePoint site or for a OneDrive to an Azure Blob Storage. Okay, any file that is retained for 5 years after the retention period finish, instead to delete, I will take that file and using Power Automate, I will move this file to a blob storage because in that blob storage is cheaper. I run some backup process for the data instead to delete. And the other one is deactivate retention settings. In this one, we need to have some clarity, and is if today you a file that is in a retention period, you press the delete and we set that options to hide the file for end users view, that file will still retain until in this case, I was setting 6 months, until those 6 months. And after that, the file will be marked for deletion. Remember that SharePoint and OneDrive have their own trash lifecycle management. And when you delete a file, that goes through the trash, the first trash. There's two trash stages. And there is still a way to recover the file, but after all the periods, that information will be deleted. And those are normally the first configuration, the most simple one. But let's see the other options that we have here. We was reviewing under define label settings, retain items. That is the most common, to retain and delete. Another very common sample here that we can use, or at least I use a lot with customers, if you have some churn mailbox to get incident report or some logs, and every certain amount of time the inbox is full, with a retention label and a policy to apply that retention. Well, we can use the auto apply, or we can create a retention policy. We will see the difference. We were able to delete those files, those emails that are in the inbox. Normally, I use that every time with customers, as I say, because it's the most simple way to maintain the inbox mail for incident report or logs, at least with not too many data. Okay, enforce actions. When we go to enforce action, again, we can set the same period different times. We need to select when the period begin. And after that, the only thing that we can do is delete items automatically, permanently, or change the label to another one. That is all the options that we have in this enforce action. And finally, another one is, and this is something legacy, is only to use for classification. Normally, this one coming from the old exchange. Remember, almost all the retention labels coming from the old MRM to mark the emails with certain number of retention periods. In this case, I will come in here, retain again, and I will set 6 months when the items were created. And I can set this one, delete items automatically. And finally, I can create the label. When we create the retention labels, is very similar when we create the sensitivity labels. What I mean with this is you can have several labels. You can have several labels, but if the labels are not published, or if the labels are not applied in a policy, or published to in an auto apply policy, or apply or published to end users, nothing happened. We will have several retention labels, but to happen something, we need to publish the label. And here coming the different options that we have. Let's come into this one. This is retention policies. When we set a retention policy, permit me to go here. Sorry, my bad. We can use the administrative units as well. Remember, if you're not aware about admin unit is, well, it's not new, have a couple of years, but if you have a tenant and that tenant is shared with a different organization, you can split the administration over different groups to, as an example, manage only EMEA, manage only US, manage only Americas. In that case, on Microsoft Entra, we can set the admin units, and all the policies related to retention labels will be focused on those admin units. Here coming the adaptive and the statics option. The most common is the static. But let's take a minute and let's do a parenthesis and let's jump to adaptive scope. Under Microsoft Purview, let me go through all the steps. I can go to settings. Okay, it's taking a little more time. We can use these settings or the left one, and we will go to roles and scope. Here on roles and scope, we can find adaptive scope. This one can be very helpful. Why? But it's a depends. Let's see what's mean this one. We will create a new scope. We can create a SPO scope. Okay, SPO scope. We will not use admin unit. And here we can see, okay, SharePoint site. But to create an adaptive scope for SharePoint, I need to create some queries to filter the data. If we don't have any definition for site names or site URLs or another metadata, that will be very complex. But in other case, as an example, if all your HR site start with the name or the prefix or contain in the name HR, we will be able to create a query that start with, not start with, or is equal to, and we can set at least a rule to identify all the sites that start with HR or all the site that start with legal. But again, if we don't have that kind of internal definition, this will be very painful in general. Or the other thing is if the SharePoint administrator is using some metadata, maybe we can use that metadata. In other cases, this will not be helpful at all. Something similar, let me, if I talk about M365 groups, something similar happened with the Microsoft 365 groups. I can come in here, I can look for certain attributes, description, display name, alias, or custom attribute for those groups. But if that information is not in place, we will not be able to use this tool. And why we want to use adaptive scope for retention? Because in some organization, the laws and regulations are different for the different departments. And some information, maybe the people that have customers face, they need to have in mind GDPR, and some PII information needs to be deleted after 2 years or 3 years. But the people that work in contract or legal, they need to retain the data for 7 years. There is different cases that we can set or we can have based on laws and regulations that have this adaptive scope can be very helpful instead to try to identify one by one all the possible sites that are part of certain area. In that case, can be more easily to have a CSV, create a PowerShell script, and add some metadata to all the sites in one shot, and then use adaptive scope. That will be my best approach in a case that I don't have a standard for names, I don't have any kind of metadata. Uh, a PowerTool script can be easily made using a CSV as an input, and then go through all the site, adding one of these attributes. In the case of site, this one is for M365 groups, but it's the same case. And after that, we will be able to use adaptive scope. And the last one, and it's the first one in the selection, but happens something similar. Let's go here, and if I select a user, I can take any user attribute: city, alias, postal code, state, first name, last name, job title, department. But we know that normally this information is not in a standard. The city names are right in different ways. Some information is not in place. But if we want to do something quick, and I will share later, I have a GitHub page where I'm sharing several scripts on PowerTool. It's not complicated. We can do, again, based on a CSV that we can request to HR and go through all the users, setting a custom attribute. And having that custom attribute like EMEA, we can set custom attribute 5 and set EMEA to all the users on the CSV. And then we can come in here and set the adaptive scope to all the users that the custom attributes contain EMEA. And with that, we will be able to apply different retention policies based on the different laws and regulations that are in each country or each region. I hope that can be clear related to how we can use the adaptive scope. Now, back in here, if I use this one, I have only for users, but in this case, I will use static. Under static, I am able to set different policies for different services. I saw in the past in several organizations that they was trying to turning on all the possible options. My recommendation for retention policies: try to create retention policies at least per service. Why that? Because I was saying at the beginning, when a file is deleted and you have some retention period, and after the retention period finished, is sent to the trash, and the trash have certain amount of time that take to remove the data. Another problem is if I have one retention policy for the entire organization for all the services, and I need to make an exception, or I need for some reason turn it off, all the sites are and all the services are touched but this one. Nevertheless, maybe a year ago or a little more, the exclude column was added. Previously, when I started working the data lifecycle management many years ago, the exclusion was not available. And if for some reason some information was forced to be deleted, we needed to come into here and disable the retention policy. And because it was applied to all the services was affected. Again, only the best practice, if you want, or a tip: try to create retention policies by service. That means I can create a retention policy only for Exchange. Here is another thing you will see next. Here I am setting the retention period. What mean this? And for that reason, when I was showing the slide about the principles of retention, and we were discussing about explicit over implicit, with retention policies, with these retention policies, we are applying only the policy over all the items located on email, SharePoint, or OneDrive, Teams, and several other. Inclusive, there is some very interesting things that are new related to retain what is used by Copilot. That is another point that can be very helpful. But the main idea here is when I create a retention policy, I am not using retention labels. I am setting a policy only, a policy over all the items. No metadata, no other tag, to say in some way, is added to the file. Here we are defining only certain amount of time that the information cannot be deleted, or uh, after the time finish, the items is deleted automatically or do nothing. There is these options that we can set, or as I mentioned, we can set only delete items when they reach a certain age. That is the most common case for this mail used for incident report and collect logs. This one can be used. Let's use this one. Remember, we have when items were created or when items were last modified. The last modify with the autosave, that is changing constantly. For that reason, you need to take care. You need to be very careful when you select or define which of these one you will use. If we set to do nothing after the 7 years, the files can be deleted. Previous to the 7 years, we will see on record management that we have that capability. We can delete, and that information will disappear from our end user's view, but that information will still available for audit purpose through eDiscovery, because eDiscovery is the tool that permits to find information that is retained and marked for deletion. That is the big deal. No, that says in that case, after the 7 years, something that was set to delete but hide to the end users, that will be delete. That is the big deal. Okay. And now I have my policy name, webinar retention policy, over all the emails, all recipients, to retain the data for 7 years. And after that, we can review, delete. For the moment, it's not marked as delete. For that reason, will not happen nothing after the 7 years. The next step is this one, label policy. On label policy, we have two options. This is very similar as sensitivity label. We can publish the labels to be used by end users. In this case, I will select which labels I want to share with my end users. And here I can say, okay, I will share these retention labels to all locations. That means Exchange email, Office 365 groups, OneDrive, and SharePoint documents. And that is all. Retention labels for anyone inside the organization. In the case of sensitivity labels, it's the same. You have the sensitivity labels policies that you can publish to certain users to be applied over documents. In this case, it's very similar. We are publishing the retention labels that will be available from end users to protect or classify or set some retention for the files. And as same as the sensitivity labels, we will see that the other option is use an auto label. In that case, based in certain criteria, we will apply sensitivity labels. As an example, if we have a very good option to identify PII data, that is a big deal and is can be very complicated. I was discussing with customers about PII. Happens that maybe you can think that is simple, but full name, full address, phone number, and several other things that normally are considered as PII can be easily found in an email signature. In that case, we need to create a little more complex sensitive information types to detect some more complex PII, like an identifier, an SSN, a passport, plus full name, plus full address, plus phone number, and other data. But let's see, what we can do is apply labels content that contains sensitive information types. We are talking about that. We can apply based on a specific word or phrases or properties. Properties can be used, and this maybe can be very helpful, if you have a service like SAP, to say something, or Salesforce. There is several third-party tools that are used in different organizations. When the data is exported from those tools, can be injected with a property, with a metadata property on those export. We are able to find those properties and say, okay, any file that is an export from SAP, from Salesforce, from any other third-party tool will be retained, will be marked for deletion, will be. We just view the different options that we have under retention labels, and we can apply those retention labels based on those properties. Or maybe if you have a specific project name, we can do something similar. We can use trainable classifiers as well. And this another is relative new and can be very helpful. This one permit to apply retention labels when something is shared through a link. Today, it's very common that when you want to share a document, a presentation, or something, the same application, the same Office application, share a link. Here, we are able to find this attachment and apply protection based on that. The same happened if some information was referenced in interactions with Copilot. This one can be very helpful, sorry, can be very helpful to track what the end users are doing with Copilot. Set this kind of auto labeling policies for retention can be helpful on that. Let's go through sensitive information types. We can set always the custom options. Okay, we have a question here. Hi, Ruben. The answer is at least I believe that is no. There is no. I don't remember to see. Someone is on the chat is asking if the administrator have the options to see the size of preservation libraries. At least I am not aware that exists that kind of report. The only way is a PowerTool script to get that information. Or inclusive, we can do something through e-discovery, but in general, it's not something simple to get. I hope to be grown in this one, but at least on the past thing that I was reviewing, I am not aware if a new report is available. We will see. We will go through all the menus, but I'm not aware that that exists. Okay, and here again, we can select sensitive information types. You can see that we have the bundles one and all the sensitive information types and the custom one. I have several custom sensitive information types inclusive. Let me see if here, yes, we have the EDM. I have exit data match as well to identify sensitive information types and based on that, apply retention labels. If you want to know more about EDM, exit data match, you can review my channel on YouTube where I was explaining that and inclusive. On the past, I share on GitHub and post and a script that help a lot with EDM. Okay, we can select here sensitive information types. Let's see credentials. We can select credentials as an example. We have the groups. The other thing that you need to take care in this point is the group operator. I saw in some cases that the group operator was set to all of these instead of any of these. If it's set to all of these, the logical connector is an and you need to have at least matches for each item. In other cases, the logical connector is an OR, and the only thing that you need to have is a match for any of those sensitive information types. About confidence level, again, another invitation to my YouTube channel to understand what's mean low, medium, and high, if you're not clear on that. But remember, not all the sensitive information sensitivity information types have the three different confidence level. Some of them have only one, others have two, and we need to be very careful in that selection. Okay, I can go through admin unit. I was explaining that. Again, we have adaptive scope and statics, but we just reviewed that adaptive scope can be a big deal if our end users doesn't have the right information, the right attribute, and the same happen with site and Microsoft 365 groups. I will select in this case static, and I can set this policy for all the services. All the services mean Exchange Mailbox, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft 365 groups and sites. In this case, I don't think so that can be a big deal to split or not, because we are we are finding some specific sensitive information types to apply the label. The first thing is have a trust sensitive information type, a trust seed that we can use. If you don't trust on the seed, that can be very complicated. Apply content to a specific word. Similar, we can set here a condition. It's not a big deal. Trainable classifiers, same as sensitive information type, but based on trainable classifiers. And here is the last one and the new one. But this one, static, we can set on SharePoint. I don't have adaptive scope, but in this case, you can see is for the data that is shared. Well, I have the users one. For the links that come in on OneDrive, SharePoint site, Teams. That is what we can do. And here in the next step, we can set the retention label that we want to apply based on that policy. We have retention labels, retention policies that apply. Okay, Rafael, I will try to find what is happening with the survey. Thanks for letting me know. Maybe it's the dot at the end. Maybe it's the dot at the end of the URL, because then we have an uppercase and I use a dot to finish the phrase. Try to remove the dot, please, after the G, and see and letting me know if that works. Well, we was reviewing data lifecycle management. We have retention labels. We can have several retention labels and nothing happen until those labels are published, can be published to end users to be applied or through auto apply a label. And in the retention policies, we can set retention without applying retention labels. For that reason, we were reviewing previously the principle of retention about explicit and implicit. Policy lookup, I showed this one. This is very helpful to understand which policy is applying over a site, over a user, or over a group. Here we have Data Explorer, Content Explorer, and Activity Explorer. The only thing that you can see, Content Explorer and Data Explorer is almost the same. You can see which retention labels are applied over what. But again, we are not able, at least with the report available here, we are not able to show how many data is retained. Some question that was asked in the at the beginning in the chat. That is in general what we can get on the most common cases that we can use on data lifecycle management. I will not go in deep related to data connectors, but I will extend an invitation to go in the Purview portal under settings. Here you can see the connectors, and in several of these ones can be used to create event to trigger some labels and some actions. Okay, someone is asking me for PCI DSS scanning. I am discussing with another colleague that invited me to create to do a webinar about NIST, and I have on mind to have a complete webinar about how you can use Purview to accomplish PCI. In that case, in the same survey, you can add yourself to the email distribution list that I have, and you will be able to see that. Okay, now the other one, and it's a little more complex, is record management. Record management, let me back to the PPT, is this one. In general, maybe it's not maybe too simple, but in general, we will be able to identify which data needs to be retained, extend the retention period, or needs to be deleted based in certain considerations. We saw that when I was creating a label, in some of the options available on the retention labels appears something called disposition. That disposition is part of record management. Let me jump to that. Here we have the overview, recommendations, total files applied manually, automatically. And here we can see the labels. Here you can see that appears that are the same labels. And let me split this one to show to you. I will split. Let me show you. If I back to data lifecycle management, retention labels, and here I have the plan, you can see that in general are the same labels. Let me, if I can organize by names to have a more clear review. Now you can see that is almost the same. Here is the retention labels, and here is a file plan. But on record management, when we create a label, and that will be reflected on the other side as well, record management label, please good description for user. Here we are running out of time. We are running quick. For that reason, I am not writing a good description. Then this is new. It's relative new. Here we can set different metadata associated to files and SharePoint. And this information can be used to define some workflows related to protection. In this case, I can skip this part. And here coming another big deal. Here, do we need any additional min access to work on it? I will answer that one in a while. Let me finish this one, and I will back to Purview role groups. There is no new Purview role groups that can be used. Normally, as a compliance administrator, you can do all the stuff, at least with data lifecycle management and record management. Here is something. This one is retain items. Give me a moment. This is the big deal. Yeah, Elizabeth is answer compliance administrator, but today we can play with the Purview role groups, and we can have some more specific role groups that can be used to avoid have too many permissions and only works on data retention and record management. This is the big deal that I wanted to show today. And I mentioned this one at the beginning about records. When you work in data management, document management, there is a specific word related to certain documents that are called as record. And what's happened? I have another configuration in another tenant that configuration is not enabled. Give me a moment, and I will show here. I am in record management, file plan, new one. Let me go very quick, and I will show that specific and what can you do for that. RM test. We will not use this one at this moment. I select this one, and here you can see that I have retained items even if user delete. Okay, I have that one. Mark item as a record, mark item as a record, mark item as a regulatory record. This option is hide. By default is hide. And you need to use PowerShell to unhide that specific menu. You will see if you start searching for certain information on Purview, how you can manage record, you will find several information that say you need to use this option. But when you come in here, you are not able to see that option because that option is hide. And this is the way that we can validate if that is enabled or not. Here you can see that I'm connecting. I will share this one on the chat. Let me a minute and I will share here on the chat if you want to test power tool. You can connect first. That is the command to connect to the Purview. And then if you run this one, get regulatory compliance, you will be able to identify if this one is enabled or not. Happens that in my another tenant, I will do that very quickly. Disconnect, change the line, yes, dual. Let me connect very quickly to this another tenant. Give me one moment, please. I am adding the MFA. Okay, I am connected. And now, if I execute this same command, I will see that in this environment is disabled. And for that reason, I am not able, is on false. For that reason, I am not able to see that configuration in this tenant. To change, instead of get is a set regulatory compliance, you can easily find the commandlet and you can turn in on that option. That is something to have in mind because, again, in certain organization, when we talk about laws and regulations and documental management, we need to accomplish the regulatory record, and that is high in our interface. We need to do that step. And here you can see that this configuration is very similar. Is very similar to when we were creating under retention policies, under the data lifecycle management. Sorry, is very similar the options that we have, but here at the end, we have this one that is not part of the data lifecycle management and is part of record management, but the retention label can be the same. Nevertheless, here, let me copy this one. Here is the commandlet code block. If you want to start enabling in your tenant, nothing happened. Nevertheless, nothing happened if you enable that option. You can do at any moment, and the only thing is you have that new menu. On the past, after enable that, I don't know how many time it's taking right now, but on the past, when I was doing that, was taking me around 24 hours to appear. That means it's not weird that you execute that command let and then come in here and not see anything. You will need to wait a while. That is something very important to have in mind about what is this specific configuration. I hope that tip can help to you to apply that kind of configuration. And again, this is I believe this is the most important one, and I will do a little pause here and I will go back to settings. Let me go back to settings because I mentioned at the beginning that in the same Purview settings, we have something for record management. Here on record management, we can set some configurations for disposition. Okay, let's wait until it works. Let me try. I don't receive an answer. If the survey is working fine without the dot, let me new tab. Let me remove the dot. Yeah, the problem is the dot. Okay, let me back here. And I will share again. Please, again, if you can take a little time to complete the survey after the session or after left this webinar, please take time and that will be very helpful for me. Okay, here on record management, we can set to whom we will send that specific disposition if we need to reduce. And then we can set the initial email and the reminder email. What happened, I was showing at the beginning that on my case, I am receiving several alerts related to review some dispositions that I need to, no, that is inside the risk management. Let me hear another from record management. And I need to take some actions over those files and decide if I need to extend or not, or change to another label. And we will see later that from here we can jump to the right page where I can see all of that, or in the process to review the menu, we will see that exists the menu for this position. And for that specific case, yes, exists. And now I will continue the pause related to record management. Here in role groups, to review those files, we need the role of supervision. Here I have several roles previously created, but related to the specific question. Here is this one, supervisory review. This is the role normally that we can give to someone to review all the files that are marked for deletion or something similar. That is the rule. Another option, here we can see the record management as well. Here we have this one that permit me to use the disposition management, record management, retention, and a scope manager. That permit me to work with records as well. Microsoft was working to increase the number of role groups available to work with the principle of less privilege. In that case, we can come in here and review. On the past, I was sharing other script to create some role groups and do several things that are very interesting. Maybe if you're not following me on LinkedIn, you can find me. And normally I am sharing several things related to simplify activities through PowerTool. And again, the rest of configuration is similar or almost the same from retention, but the big deal is this one. And to reach this specifically regulatory record, we need to enable that capability in our tenant using PowerShell, and then go to record management to create the retention label based on this. That here on record management is called Firefly, but it's the same. We have the label policies. Here, this is very important. Instead, in the data lifecycle management, and sorry, I am doing this one because I want to show that here is not available in the previous. Let me go back. Data lifecycle management. Here under policies, we have retention policies that can be applied to all the services and all the items that are located on each service. But here, we don't have that. Here, to work with the record management, we need to create these file plans, that's the retention labels. The big deal between this one and the other one is we have some additional capabilities, but the same one that I create, here you can see, I can see the same one that I created previously under data lifecycle management. I created this one, and I can manage here. I can do some additional configuration. You can see almost, and I can edit the label. In general, the big point is this one, file plan descriptor. This is more related to data governance. Here there is some information that can be used on SharePoint, on OneDrive, metadata, used for that. Uh, that is another topic, how we can manage the data. But in general, the same labels, the same retention labels can be used here on record management. Nevertheless, here under record management, we have some additional capabilities that can be used. Then we have the label policies. On the label policies, we can do the same as in the previous console. We can publish these retention labels to end users. For end users, this is transparent. They will see retention labels. They don't know if that retention label was published through data lifecycle management or record management. And the same happened with apply auto label. Here, in apply auto label, we can see that apply label retention label. We can see that we can use the same steps that we were viewing in the data lifecycle management. It's the same thing. I will select this one, add, next, admin units, statics. I don't have adaptive. We review adaptive. I can select certain services or all the services. I was saying that at least for me right now, with this current configuration, we can use only one. In that case, with one policy, we can apply retention labels based on PII. Something that we need to have in mind is create different policies per different sensitive information types. Something that I was viewing in several places that, okay, I'm saying that we can set all the services in one policy, but it's not recommended to set all the sensitive information types in one policy because we need to be careful related to the confidence level, the logic beside the sensitive information types. We need to understand that today with the digital information, we have some more complex sensitive information types. In that order of idea, maybe a group of PII only with full name or email address is not the best approach, thinking in in an email signature. In that case, my recommendation is split the policies by the way that you are grouping the different sensitive information types. Okay, we have another question here. Oh, yeah, yeah. That is a parenthesis. Let me finish this one and I will go to questions on the chat about role groups. And that is a very, very common case. I don't know why it's not resolved, but it's clear what is happening. Okay, let's go. Uh, I was saying, for this auto-labeling policy for retention labels, using the retention labels created under record management, we can set all the services, but I have a recommendation to at least have different policies based on the sensitive information types. I select all the services, and now, because I am looking for financial information, maybe I can apply a retention period of 7 years. And here I can see that this keep for 7 years, then requests a review, and finally can be deleted. Another, here I can see if it's a record. That is the configuration that we just is regulatory record. We will see yes, yes in this case for the retention. And we can turn the policy on, or I want to test the policy. I need to see finally the impact that this uh, retention label can have. Okay, let me back to that specific one. Someone was asking on the chat, and that is and I have something pending there that is not viewing this one, role groups. Unfortunately, when you use compliance administrator role assigned by PIM, by privileged identity management, this one is hide. The only way to see role groups is if someone on Microsoft Entra assigned directly the compliance administrator, not as a not to be enabled through PIM as an active role, you will see this one, role groups. Another one that is possible that you can request is here on the same role groups that someone with inclusive I remember that global administrator assigned by PIM, I believe that doesn't see the role groups as well. The only way to see that is when you have directly assigned the compliance administrator. But here you have something related to roles. Purview. With Purview administrator, if someone gives to you this role group, Purview administrator, you are able to have this one, role management. And role management can give to you the permissions for to see role groups. Or you can create a specific Purview role group only with that specific role and assign to your account, and you will be able to see role groups. That are the two options. Okay, the last part that I was planning to review, we was reviewing the emails from this position, but here on retention labels is this kind of magic. I was telling previously that in the past, when you have a retention policy or retention labels apply over documents, when someone was deleting from email, the expected behavior that email was removed from the end user's view, but stored in a hide space available for audit purpose through e-discovery. When you have retention policies in place or retention labels in place on SharePoint and OneDrive, and you try to delete the file, you will see a message that you are not able to delete the file because the retention label or the retention policy. But here we can change that behavior. And in that case, that file can disappear from the end user's view and have a similar behavior as email. That file is hid in a special storage and is able to be read through an e-discovery case where the data is retained. There is another couple of things related to permit manage previous versions of the files. That is when you enable versioning on SharePoint by default is the versioning is enabled, and normally you can have 500 versions for each file. That is another very big deal that when we are talking about DLP and in some cases sensitivity labels is something to discuss. I invite to you to review the versionings and how the DLP and sensitivity labels work when you have versioning. I extend that invitation, but here at least is very clear about how this work and we can enable or disable those capabilities. Let's go back here. I create the auto labeling policy to apply based on certain sensitive information types. The big deal, we saw that we have some specific metadata that we can add to, to the retention policy. Plus, we have this record, this special record that I was explaining that needs a PowerTool configuration. Here we can see that on my main tenant, this is enabled, but in the secondary tenant, that is disabled. And I mentioned this a couple of times. We can create events but to have some event, we need to use some event types and we need to configure all of that based on certain data connectors that we can set on Purview. Purview is very powerful in several things, but not all the people knows how this work, how the data connectors works, and can be very interesting to go a little more in deep about the different data connectors that we have on place and what we can do with each data connector related to record management, DLP, sensitivity labels, and several other topics. I will extend another invitation to start reviewing Purview data connectors and all the capabilities available through those connectors. Unfortunately, in this case, I don't have any data connector on place. And finally, here on record management, we can see that I have one label only with a disposition that is called disposition 01. When I receive the email, I am forward to this page, and here in this page, I am able to see all the files that are marked to be reviewed, changed. Let me show that. Change is loading. And well, it's loading, it's taking time. But after we review the items, we will be able to change the label, mark for deletion, or take some other actions related to this topic. Let's see, it's running slow. It's still loading. Yeah, someone is related to that. I don't know why it's not showing me. I have more than 1,000 files to review, but someone is asking to set who is set for this position. I believe that I was not viewing that one in deep. Let me go there to see which other options that we have. No, that is something that maybe in an AMA with a product group uh, we can discuss or at least request as a DCR. But when we set the disposition, here on this position, stain name, we can set some reviewers, but the reviewers, you can see here, I can set the reviewers, but the reviewers are not able to select manager off. That unfortunately is not available. You can set maybe someone or a group of people or a security group from the legal area to review the disposition document from the legal area and something for financial. We can play with that capability, but right now that option for manager is not available for disposition. And backing back, here we can see a stages review, nothing to add. But backing back to the previous answer about report, you can see that the only report that we have is Data Explorer or Content Explorer. We don't have any other detailed information about how many space that we are using, how many, nothing about that. Normally, the only way to have a near number can be run an e-discovery case to identify how many files are tagged with any of those retention labels. And that is, in general, this review about data lifecycle management and record management. I hope that this review can help to you through this data journey and what we can do. Uh, Today, several organizations are focused only on sensitivity labels, only on DLP, but you need to be aware that there is several regulations and compliance that we need to achieve, and we are not doing that. Uh, my invitation is an extension to start reviewing what is applying to us and see how we can use retention policies in place or retention labels or records if that is required to start working in our environments and protecting the data. I don't know if you have any questions or comment. I believe that I go through all your questions. I really appreciate your participation. Please, if you can take 2 minutes, please complete the survey. The survey was having a problem at the beginning, only a dot, but I removed the dot. I hope to, at the end of the day, start publishing the record session on my YouTube channel. And in the description, you will be able to find this PowerPoint if you want to review. Thanks to all for your participation. Much appreciated for have to all of you again on those public webinars. Have a great evening, day, and thanks again. Have a good one.